Starfield is doing a lot to separate itself from previous Bethesda games and to establish itself as one of the most ambitious Bethesda Game Studios games ever. And there's one feature in particular I feel has not been discussed enough. It's not 1,000 planets, it's not vehicles making an appearance in a Bethesda Game Studios game for the first time ever. It's not the Creation Engine 2.0 with its photogrammetry and all of the exciting features that unlocks. How is it going, everybody? My name is DamarcoDude, and before I reveal what the feature is, this has had me excited since it was first officially confirmed in an interview with Will Shen. I am talking about diverging faction quest lines. Now, multiple different paths in gaming is nothing new to games in general. It's been around for years, it's been a feature and a staple of many titles, but for a Bethesda Game Studios games that's already kind of endlessly replayable, Fallout 3, Morrowind, Skyrim, Oblivion, all of them 10 or more years later still being played, still new secrets about them being found. You combine that, the replayability, with the roleplayability that multiple branching paths for the factions add, on top of it being a part of what I think is some of the best quests in the game, usually the faction specific ones. This can be an incredibly exciting prospect, assuming it's handled correctly. Take a listen to the official interview clip for yourself.
And this time around, we were like, no, we really want the stories to be a little more personal, right? You're influencing the direction of where this faction is going to go. So say the politics of the Freestar Rangers, right? You know, what's more important? Is it justice or industry, right? Where are you going to try to nudge them in this direction or another? So you don't necessarily end up as the head of every single faction of the game. But, you know, obviously all the major characters in every faction quest line will be reflecting on your choices, but, you know, it can have far-reaching consequences for what that faction is, what it cares about.
Getting to decide who lives and who dies, seeing your faction evolve as you progress through the quest line, these are exciting principles to explore on paper, as long as they're handled well. I can see how this feature could be really great, or how it can be just sort of okay. Before I explain what I think will make or break this feature, be sure to let me know what you're hoping to see out of it down in the comments section below. For me personally, there's really two things that I think can make this just an average experience at best. The first is if your choices really ultimately don't matter after everything is all said and done. You could look at, for example, Telltale Games and how those titles, they kind of course correct back to the same point no matter what you decide. It's the illusion of choice that is very prevalent in a lot of choice and consequence games. Seemingly, that's not going to be as much of a problem here. Will Shen says, again, who lives, who dies, the end result for certain factions will be up to you to decide. But on the surface, that sounds good. The turnout, however, I will say, can remain inconsequential if there's no direct impact on you, the player, how you experience the game, how you play the game after having made those decisions. What I mean by that is if you finish a faction questline, you've chosen a very heavily militaristic route, and there's no unique buffs, there's no unique perks, there's no new unique only available items for sale if you took those actions. Relationships with other factions or NPCs are all the same no matter what you've done. Dialogue choices, one of the most meaningful ways to change something like this, have no impact at all. A way that this was done right, you could look to Divinity Original Sin 2. If you complete a quest in a heroic and chivalrous manner, you'll get the heroic tag, which can be used in certain dialogue options throughout the game. That's exciting. If those things in some capacity aren't there once I've decided the fate of this faction, what choices did I really make? Are the bases all mostly the same, just with a slightly different skin and some slightly different buildings? Sure, from a cosmetic standpoint, that's pretty cool to see it spread across the world, but how does that impact me, the player? It doesn't matter if NPC A or NPC B is alive if they don't really do much after the quest line is over anyway. Who cares? That's not to say that you can't have these massively epic, cinematic, and memorable moments when an action you take accidentally gets NPC you kind of liked killed. I'm all for those kinds of things to happen, but the factions need to exist in some capacity beyond the little self-contained bubbles that Bethesda faction questlines often fall into. The second way this feature could really not live up to its potential is if every single thing just hinges on one single decision, probably at the end of the faction's questline. I could fully envision a scenario in which everything you've done leading up to the last quest, the climactic moment of the finale for the Crimson Fleet, all boils down to choice A or choice B. And that's what actually influences the end result of said faction. That's not exciting, as opposed to being able to see a faction evolve and grow and change, points being added up in the background based on certain decisions that you make that you're not privy to until finally something happens, leaving you in a state where maybe you don't end up with the result that you wanted. It makes you reflect on the choices you made along the way that led you to this point. How could you have done different things differently? That's a lot more exciting than just blatantly a choice being laid out in front of me that I know, okay, this is where it all actually matters. You could do this by offering multiple different quests that will shape the direction and how certain events play out, or who you bring along with you on said quests might change certain aspects, how they interact with the MacGuffin that you need to go to the planet to collect. The fear and the knowledge that the things I'm doing can affect everything later on is just as, if not more exciting than the actual climax or the outcome itself, and I want to be able to experience that. There's an opportunity to do it here. In an ideal situation, you have choices on top of choices with choices inside those choices, leading to this butterfly effect of just tons of different things and outcomes that can happen based on you and how you play the game, unique completely to your experience. That's probably asking a lot if a game is already as big as Starfield is. I do understand that. So you take the best of it, you take the lowest of it, and hopefully they meet nicely in the middle there, get some good equilibrium going on with what we can actually expect when Starfield launches. Even if it's done on the most basic of levels, the exciting thing about it is, assuming there's maybe 2 faction paths per faction, you're effectively doubling the amount of content that's there. In a way, the amount of times to get every single different ending across multiple playthroughs. That's pretty exciting. I'm all down for that. And the bigger thing for me is the role playability, the ability to really choose what type of character you want to play as and define them by having these multiple options. That in and of itself is a really exciting precedent for the game to set. Immersion is one of the greatest things about Bethesda games, that you could really dive in and feel like you're a part of these worlds. And again, even if it's done on just simply a basic level, allowing me as a character to fully explore what that character values, what kind of person they want to be, and how they want to shape things around them, that in and of itself is an exciting feature, and I'm really looking forward to playing it out when Starfield releases. But let me know your thoughts down below. Thank you all so much for watching, and as always, I hope to see you all next time. So long, everybody.